right, welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast, and today we are going to get a little creepy. We are going to be taking a look at the movie Abigail, a story about six kidnappers who think they're going to do a quick job, but come to find out they got more than what they bargained for. But before we dive in, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to let us know how we're doing down in the comments below. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and let's dive into Abigail. Lee, how are you doing today?
Good. Like I said, I know I brought up Abigail, right? So this was definitely a pick from my side of the world, and I don't remember what got me into it. Do you remember anything about this as it was coming out that you could recall?
I mean, it flew under my radar. I kind of thought it was one of those indie films that that you occasionally hear about, but it doesn't really get that much press.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's kind of like one of those. It's kind of like one of those movies where it seems indie enough, but it's got a big name actor in it, but you really don't pay too much attention to it. And I'm sure we must have seen a trailer, when we went to go see several movies a few months ago. But
God, you would think so, but I swear I don't remember. And like I said, I don't remember what got me into it. And I thought it was kind of funny. So the Dead Meat podcast, they had I saw they did like a kill count of this. Just they posted yesterday, so I thought it was kind of like, oh, of course, I'm gonna see Abigail pop up all of a sudden when I don't feel like I've seen a ton about the film, but yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? So, and I think this is what makes the movie interesting. And I would say, like, anyone that's listening that has at least any type of interest in it, try to go into it blind, because I went into this not having any clue what it's about. I didn't really look up or see anything about it. I just kind of took a shot at it, and I guess, spoiler alert, I enjoyed it. So we meet our protagonists, right, and their mission to kidnap a child. Child's name is Abigail. So gonna probably be pretty critical to the story. And I like how, even in kind of this opening, right, where we're seeing the kidnapping happen, you kind of learn a little bit about the characters just from how they're interacting with each other. So you don't even really see a whole lot of interaction between everybody, but you can kind of tell, like, hey, we got this main character. Her name is Joey, and she's a little bit protective, and we see a little bit of Frank, who we'll talk about a little bit, and he definitely doesn't look like he's opposed to hitting a child. So you get some nice subtle clues about who these characters are. So they end up kidnapping the girl as it looks like the father is showing up. And the kidnappers, the six of them, take the girl to this huge mansion. And the huge mansion is going to be really where the whole story takes place. And you see that they're going to this mansion, and they're going to kind of wait it out for 24 hours while they're trying to get money from the father. So we get to meet all the characters. So we have the character Lambert, who's, I'm just gonna throw the name out there, and just people put the name Lambert into your head. It's gonna come up later, right? But he kind of is the quote unquote group leader, and he just kind of pissed off for the majority of the film, right? He just kind of leaves. So it gives us kind of an opportunity to meet all of our other characters. And I kind of liked how they do a little bit of this, like, Reservoir Dogs type of thing where they specifically don't want to share each other's identities, so we kind of just get made up names, characters from the Rat Pack. So I guess if you're, I guess you have to be a little bit older to understand what the Rat Pack is, but I guess Google it if you need some more clarity on that. But we get to meet our main characters. So we got Joey, right? She's kind of, I would say, our main lead, right? She was an army medic, and also looks like she has some previous or current drug type related issues. We meet Frank, who's kind of this, really salty police detective. Peter, who I personally think was my favorite character, this kind of big, dumb muscle guy. You got Sammy, our female hacker. Rickles, who's this kind of like cool, well-spoken, like former military. I believe he was a sniper or something like that. And Dean, our super obnoxious getaway driver. So Luca, tell me a little bit. What did you think about these 6 characters that we get more familiar with throughout the film?
I mean, they are a pretty diverse bunch, and you kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
you kind of get the feeling that that each and every one of them's arrogant in their own way. Even Joey, because even when she's
Yes.
rattling off about their qualities, I mean, you kind of get the feeling that there's a smugness about her, but you're still rooting for her. I mean, the driver Dean, who's played by the late Angus Cloud. I'm kind of glad he was the first person to get off, because he really wasn't bringing much to the table, apart from the fact that he was trying to get it on with Sammy, but Sammy was like, "Yeah, I'm not really into you." Um, Frank, I think, was was probably like the next most interesting character, because
Yes.
he is an ex cop from Queens, as Joey points out, and and the more you learn about the guy, it's like he started off as a good guy, but he kind of fell by the wayside. Now he's this crooked cop, and
Yes.
and what you see later on in the film, he literally embraces the dark side.
Yes,
Because
that's a good way of looking at it.
I mean,
Um,
he embraced the dark side before, but towards the end of the movie, it's like he's just given up any hope of trying to be a
yes.
good guy. Not that he was a good guy at the very beginning. I did think it was funny. He keeps getting stabbed over and over again. Like
Yes.
he keeps getting stabbed for, I think, like, it was the arm or the hand, then he gets stabbed in the leg, and then
Yes.
he like gets stabbed in the
Mhm,
chest or something. So it's
mhm.
so this guy, he's literally a pincushion every
Yes.
time he encounters the character Abigail.
Yeah.
Um
Very, very true. So yeah, so I did, like I said, I liked all the characters. I thought a lot of them stuck out. I do totally agree with you, and I had to laugh at it. I feel bad because knowing, unfortunately for the actor that played Dean, his untimely passing. But for his character in this film, he absolutely was like, I didn't know what was going to happen in it, but I was like, I hope that I don't see a lot of Dean because I really don't like him. But yeah, I think the characters were all very fun and distinct. I think, I really liked, the character of Rickles. I thought it was like this, very kind of cool, calm, and collected character, compared to most of the other ones. Pete and Sammy, I kind of like how they were kind of like our comic relief in a way. And I just like kind of the overall kind of like the tone, the characters, I think worked really well throughout the film. So yeah, so we have all these characters, and we got Abigail that's up in the room, kidnapped, and we see kind of Joey. One of her responsibilities in this is to kind of interact with Abigail, make sure everything's okay. And you can kind of see, there's a little bit of a bond going on here, right? Like she kind of protected her at the beginning when Frank was going to hit her, but she kind of protected her there. And we can kind of see this bond happening with them. And, we find out that Joey has a son, and, kind of helps explain a little bit about what she is. But I really like how we have this initial interaction, and we start to get these kind of seeds of the unknown going on, right? So her father is kind of this really just rich guy, but we don't really know anything about him. And I like how Abigail kind of has this, I guess, thing that she says as Joey's leaving. She's like, I feel sorry for what's gonna happen to you. And I love that, right? I thought that was incredible. And I do want to call out the actress that plays Abigail. She was fantastic. Normally, I don't give a whole lot of child actors a whole lot of credit. And I think it's just, it's an experience thing, right? But I think she did really fantastic. What did you think about Abigail's role throughout the film without like getting into too much about kind of specifics?
I mean, she played it coy, the way that that a kid would play, but you kind of get the sense there's more going on, between the
Hmm.
ears than what you'd expect.
Hmm.
I mean, that's all I'm going to say right now, because I don't want to
Yeah.
rush into things.
Yeah, no. I feel you. So yeah, I did enjoy that, and I think if you this is one of those I enjoyed the rewatch for, because you kind of pick up a more context on a rewatch than maybe the first time watching it and going in blind. So, but yeah, we find out that her father is this Christophe Lazar, right? Who's this very dangerous guy, and I like how everyone's reaction to it is this kind of like totally spooked by just hearing the name. And you know, I love this movie, and I'm gonna bring it up right now. It reminded me a lot of The Usual Suspects and how we get introduced to Kaiser Sose. Right? He's like kind of this character that has like, you know, it's almost legend what the character's about and kind of the things that the character will do to people. And I couldn't help but notice that. Did you pick up on that? Did you kind of pick up on that as well, or am I thinking too deep on that?
No, that is a valid point. I was thinking more along the lines for, I guess in terms of a more contemporary reference would be Voldemort from the Harry Potter films.
Oh,
it's
yes,
like
that's a good one.
He's you know, because a lot of the audience members may not be as well versed in movies like The Usual Suspects. So for me, Lazov, has more of a Voldemort quality to him, because he's one of those characters that they've heard of him, but you don't say his name out loud, like. And I like Dean's reaction, because Dean's like, oh, he's just a fucking legend. Like, no one's ever heard of him. And it's like, no, he's real, all right. He's quite real. And when they do that reveal, you kind of begin to understand, like, why Lambert kind of played his cards close to his chest, because if you had told them who they were, whose daughter she was, they would never have done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not even if it was 75 mil a piece.
Yeah, exactly. Like it is very clear that the reaction is all very negative. Like they just made the biggest mistake of their life, and I think that's saying a lot for some of these people that have clearly done quite a bit of shady things over their time. So, but I like how just as soon as his name gets dropped, you have like everyone gets super defensive. And it kind of turns into, okay, now we got to go out there. We got to secure the house, make sure everything's okay. And we get our first death, right? And that is the character of Dean, who wanders into the basement. And he just kind of gets like pulled off of some stairs, right? And I think what I like about this is they're very slow to kind of reveal what's happening, which I think plays well into the story. Because we don't really see what happens, but we do see the aftermath. And we see that Dean, his head just kind of rolls off his shoulders after somebody, like, I guess, puts the body back into a chair. So I think that kind of sets the tone for what we're going to be in, because, I mean, the head is totally ripped right off of its shoulders. And obviously this kind of, needless to say, freaks out everybody. And I like how it kind of adds this almost like supernatural element to it, because like it's clearly not like, he didn't get his head like cut off or something. Like you could see like it clearly looked like it was animalistic in nature. And even the characters kind of mention how that looks. So this kind of, I think kind of creates this, kind of air of danger for everybody. The group is trying to help get some answers for what's going on. So we see them, or we see Joey go up and meet with Abigail again. And Abigail, I like how she kind of does this, right? She starts to sow some seeds of distrust with the group, because she throws out a name. She says, oh, Valdez is here. Valdez being this really big character that works under Abigail's father, Lazar. And she says that Frank is this Valdez character. And I, like I said, I really like how the seed of distrust, you see being planted in, where we're going to start to see our characters kind of not trusting each other. So, we kind of, go through some, tension within the group. And that's when Joey and Rickles, they decide like, hey, we need to team up. We're going to, take this guy out. This way, we're not going to kill them. And this is actually one of the parts where I was totally shocked by. Rickles gets killed like right behind Joey, right? And you kind of don't see what happens, but you kind of see him like standing there. and then you see Joey go in there, and you see Rickles, and he's kind of like torn to some pieces. And to me, this was a shocking death. Once I kind of knew that this was going to be a film where people were going to die, Rickles was not high on my list of who's going to get killed next. How did you feel about the death of Rickles there?
I mean, well, keep in mind too. I mean, there's a lot going on before all this happens. I mean, first of all, they have the conversation about who Valdez is, and I think they tell the story about how three witnesses were
Yes.
were locked up in a hotel room on the 23rd floor. They had they had two agents outside the door, and the agents were in the next room, and yet somehow those three witnesses were disemboweled and dismembered, and they can't figure out how that happened because in their minds, I think it would be impossible for someone to reach the 23rd floor of a hotel and do all this to them and escape without them noticing. So that so that right off the bat kind of sets the stage for what kind of person they're going to be dealing with in Valdez. Second of all, I was a part of me was a little bit confused because what happened to Dean, would seem consistent with what they're saying about Valdez, but here it looks like he's just been torn apart. Or not torn apart, but he's kind of been ripped up a little bit.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, that's a better way to describe it. Yeah,
he's more intact than Dean was, because Dean, has literally been torn apart. But Rickles, I mean, it kind of looked like half of his face was ripped off.
Yes,
that was pretty much it. Was that how you took it?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. It reminded me a little bit of like American Werewolf in London, like
how they
kind of like look after they got mauled by the werewolf, so to speak. So something similar to that type of effect.
And it kind of and what happens next when Joey confronts Frank, because I think he's coming out of the bathroom and he says something about getting stains off or something. So so I thought that was like the perfect way to keep sowing those seeds of doubt.
Yes.
and then Frank is like, I don't know what the fuck you people are talking about.
Yes. And he definitely doesn't come across like someone that would be able to do anything stealthily, right? Like he feels very blunt in everything he does. I don't think he would be able to cover up anything personally, but
no, especially if he keeps getting stabbed over and over again.
Yes, that's true. So
and mind you, like if he got stabbed by a 12-year-old girl, I mean, imagine how much pain a former Marine would put on him.
Yes,
like he'll be very noticeable.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. So, but yeah, so we have the death of Rickles here. We end up having all the characters that are trying to figure out what to do. So they all are in Abigail's room, and everyone's kind of confronted each other. They're not sure what to do. So you see Joey's kind of pointing the gun over at our other characters, and it looks like Peter is kind of a reluctant person that he's just trying to get answers, and he doesn't know what to do, but he feels like the girl has the answers, and Frank is edging him on. Sammy's just kind of to the side. And I love how it just kind of cuts to Abigail, and you see her break out of the cuffs, and you see her, like, you see like the fangs and everything come out, and it becomes very clear that she's a vampire. And this, to me, like I said, going into this, I had no idea what the plot of anything was. This to me was totally unexpected. I think you kind of got some hints at it, looking back when you see how these characters were really mauled. But it was not something I was expecting, definitely not for it to be Abigail. So I don't know. I was personally surprised by this. How about you? Were you as shocked as me, or did you kind of sense that maybe Abigail was ultimately what was happening here?
I mean, it came as a huge shock to me too. It was a nice reveal because it kind of takes the movie in a whole different direction. Because when you watch it initially, you're thinking, oh, it's going to be like The Usual Suspects or one of those heist movies, and maybe you think, oh, the dad turns out he's someone who knows tactical warfare, and he's going in to save his daughter. But then you see that reveal, and you're like, okay, so they literally have changed the nature of the game now. Like it's survival horror at this point. It's no longer a heist film.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I really enjoyed with this, is that it's able to kind of have these very clear tonal shifts, and I think each of them work within what we've been experiencing with the characters in the story, because you almost start to like you kind of start to get a little bit more, I don't want to say slapstick, but like you start to see more like silly things like the jokes like, okay, well, how do we kill a vampire? And I think they interact like normal people would interact, right? Like, vampires know them to be fictional characters. So now all of a sudden they're like, oh, geez, they're real. Like, okay, what do we know about them from all these, stories that we never believed in, but now we got to, considering the situation. And I think it's really where we get to, I think, kind of enjoy more of the characters, because I think for Peter and Sammy, I kind of call them the comic relief, and I think they kind of continue to do that. But I liked how it kind of flowed from, like you pointed out, we kind of got this almost moving into a survival horror type of situation where now we're fighting a vampire, and we're a good chunk of the way through. I don't actually remember how far through the story, like probably at least half, would you say?
Yeah, it's a very short movie. It's about probably like an hour and 50 minutes, give or take.
Yeah. So maybe it's about halfway, maybe a little bit earlier, but yeah, I mean it's a good way in where we kind of have this big shift, and I think all the characters are like, well, okay, what do we do now that we got to deal with the vampire? And I like how their first decision is, well, I guess we're just gonna kind of like make some steaks, and we're gonna get some garlic, and we got a crucifix, and we're just gonna go kind of for this frontal assault. So we see like Frank, Peter, and Sammy. Joey does not participate in this first one. So they all kind of confront Abigail directly, and they pretty much all get the crap knocked out of them. So Sammy gets punched a whole bunch. You see Peter gets stabbed multiple times in the chest with his crucifix. And your boy Frank gets stabbed in the leg with a broken pull cue. And I like how they kind of just like, when they figure out like this is not working, they just kind of leave, and Abigail lets them go, and I kind of like that. Like, she very clearly enjoys playing with her food, so to speak. So yeah, these three characters, they all kind of leave, and they're all beaten up. They go to kind of lick their wounds, and I like how Joey's just kind of downstairs eating food, and just kind of like nonchalantly was like, "Well, that didn't go well. Now did it?" So they decide in this next circumstance that, in their next interaction, that they're going to use like the sedative that they utilized the first time to kind of attack Abigail and sedate her, and I guess try to, keep her kind of kidnapped or prisoned to avoid anything else. And I like how in this kind of second altercation, things kind of work out in their favor. But Sammy is bit. And I think when you've watched like a lot of things with vampires, being bit, it's hard to know like what that really means, right? Because we've seen plenty of things where it's like you bit, nothing happens, you're bitten, you changed. So I like how, I think because vampire lore just kind of like changes from one genre to the next, or from one source material to the next, you don't really know what to expect. So but yeah, how did you like kind of these first few fights that they have against Abigail, and kind of like how they have some very interesting tones with it?
I will give them points for trying. I mean, we know they're not going to be able to beat a vampire, especially one who's several centuries old.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it's so funny that they think that they're just going to go in there, and beat them up. And one of the scenes I thought was really funny was Sammy. She goes into the kitchen and she comes up with a bag of onions, and
Yes.
Frank's like, those are onions, it's not garlic. And she's like, well, I don't really cook that often. So I thought that was pretty funny. I also thought it was interesting that that the traditional methods of trying to kill a vampire don't seem to work,
Yes.
but they're able to use a sedative, and that actually works. So like you said, the rules of the game kind of keep changing when it comes to vampire lore. So I guess in this reality, apparently, the pharmaceutical companies can create medicine that's powerful enough to put out a vampire, when apparently nothing else is going to work apart from sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of weird that the traditional methods don't work, but a simple sedative does.
Yeah, very true. And I think it's probably a good time for the audience to know that, like, Abigail is like literally looks like a little 12, 13, 14-year-old girl running around at the tutu, which I think just, I mean, makes it that much funnier, right?
But I mean,
You
but I
know,
mean, vampires don't age.
oh,
So
of course, yes,
yeah.
yes. I mean, yeah, mentally, like, you kind of understand, like, okay, she's obviously more than meets the eye, so to speak, but I don't think you can get away from how just the whole idea seems really goofy, just looking at it face value. So, um, yeah, so we have the group manages to kind of lock everyone up, and we see them kind of once again confront Abigail about the situation. And I had another scene. I think this is probably one of the things that kind of made me laugh the most. Was Sammy was like, "What's gonna happen to me now that you bit my neck?" And Abigail's expression, she just kind of shrugs her shoulders, like, I don't know. And I burst out laughing. And I think that's why, as I said, I really like the actress that played Abigail. I think she did great in this role. She did play that very, very well. But yeah, like, she's trying to ultimately make a deal with the group to be like, hey, if whoever lets me out, I'll let you escape. So, everyone's like, this is obviously trap, but, our poor dumb guy Peter's like, well, I got to try it. And I
Well, I
like
mean,
how
we'll also keep in mind too. I mean, earlier in the film, um, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happens. I think it's because they tried to break the gate, and that triggered the alarm that put the whole place in lockdown. So 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 I don't think Abigail would have any way of letting them go, even if they did release her from that
that's
little
true. Yeah.
prison. So so they'd pretty much be back to square one
Yes.
on that one.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, Peter's kind of like, but I mean, like, you kind of have to feel out options, right? Like like you pointed out, right? You're going against a vampire. It's going to be hard to win this one. So, even if it's a lie, there's not too many things that are out there. I like how Joey just kind of casually shoots Peter, and he just kind of has this like, I can't believe you did this reaction, like not really like pissed off or mad, just like kind of like eyes of why would you do that?
I mean, she did. I
So
mean, she did tell him, so it's not
yeah,
like
it's true. It's
you
true.
know.
She gave plenty of warning. So, but the other characters kind of leave to go help Peter, and we see Frank stays behind to kind of guard Abigail. He kind of continues to kind of taunt her as she's there, and I like how ultimately Frank tries to find out a way to escape, and I like how Abigail just eventually just pushes open the door, right? So this whole time they think that she's been um, kind of in their control, just to find out that once again she's just kind of playing around, like she could have escaped at any time. And I like that. And then this is where we kind of see kind of, I guess, our first instance of what we can do as the remaining survivors. So Abigail's going after Frank. Joey ends up like breaking open some boards that reveal windows that has sunlight coming through. And we see it kind of pours into the room. It hits Abigail's arm, and Abigail's arm just kind of explodes. Um, so, but this is where, like I said, we kind of are like, hey, we know what we need to do now, or we know that the sunlight's going to be the effective way to do it. So like in any Scooby-Doo movie or cartoon show or whatever, they're like, hey, well, we need to get out of here. Let's go ahead. We're going to split up, and we need to find out a way to kind of reset the like defensive mechanism that the house is all like closed up now. We need to reset that. And then the whole idea is that all the light will pour in and they'll be safe. So they split up. So we got Joey and Frank that go together as a team, and we see Sammy and Peter go as a team. And this is where kind of I think my saddest death happens, where we see Sammy gets taken over by Abigail, and she ends up killing poor Peter. And Peter gets killed, and I think it just kind of goes to show that you don't really know the powers of the vampires, so you don't really know what to expect. And that was one where I wasn't expecting her to be able to almost take control of Sammy. So we see Sammy kill Peter, and then Sammy tries to lure both Joey and Frank into the room. Joey correctly deduces that, hey, something's really weird here. This doesn't seem right to me. And then, they kind of run, and once again, they're able to use light, and they're able to kill. They kill Sammy, obviously Sammy being controlled by Abigail, but they kill her nonetheless, leaving kind of our last two characters left here to fend off against Abigail. And this is where I really liked a lot of what I've seen so far. This is where I think things kind of got weird. How do you kind of like the last 15, 20 minutes of this?
I mean, it pretty much keeps in line with the whole, expect the unexpected vibe of the
That's
movie.
true. That's
true.
Because
what I thought was really, really funny was that Frank, he goes to the bookshelf and he's trying to find, that key that will open a secret passage that will let him out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's just going through the bookshelf, and Joey's just you get it all out there, Frank. And he's flipping out. So so it just goes to show that that Abigail is very much in control. And we also come to find out that this isn't the first time this has happened. This is something that's been consistent throughout.
Yes.
The one scene that really, really made my eyes widen in surprise was when Sammy falls into that. I think it's like a pit or something, but it's in the basement. So Sammy literally stumbles into bodies in the basement, and you come to find out these were her past victims as part of her. I mean, I really did get Predator vibes from it, because you remember that movie.
Yeah.
Because you remember that movie with Adrian Brody where they're dropped on this game reserve planet or moon, and they come to find out that they aren't the first ones there. There have been others before them. That's the vibe that I got.
Lots of other ones, right?
Yeah.
Lots of other ones.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's every corner could literally hide something that you're not expecting to happen. So so when they just see that door open, in my mind I'm thinking, well, I guess Frank did find the right key. It just took a while to work, Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, they end up seeing the secret passage, and lo and behold, who's there? It's none other than Lambert, who has been totally gone from the whole film up to this stage, other than the brief time we saw him at the beginning. So they reintroduce this character, and you find out that Lambert is once again he's a vampire.
So hold on. He's been in there the entire time, right? Because that's the impression that I got.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm fully expecting as well, is that he's been there the whole time, because I figured he must have got back in prior to the lockdown, because I feel
because he was the one who instigated the lockdown, because you could see that control box.
That's true. So and I don't think, knowing how fast these vampires can move, I don't think it's too outside the norm. But yeah, it's kind of oh, hey, Lambert, not expecting to see you here type of thing. So so Lambert, he's sitting there kind of discussing this with Frank about hey, I can turn you to a vampire, because Lambert, he's not very happy with his role, and he wants to kill both Abigail and her father Lazar. So Lambert kind of looks at Frank as being probably the one that's most likely to be willing to get turned. And honestly, something that was surprising to me, Frank is yeah, let's do it. And so Lambert bites Frank, and Frank, one of our protagonists, right? I definitely want to call him a hero. One of our protagonists, he becomes a vampire. And like I said, I think this is where I kind of get a little bit weird with stuff, because it's Frank kind of turns initially to a vampire, and then he seems to almost be stronger than Lambert, because he kind of quickly overpowers him and kills him.
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I just think it's the fact that Frank is, Frank is, more cunning, because Lambert kind of gets into his mind. Oh, now that I created you, you're my underling, so you'll do anything I say. So he kind of drops his guard down. Plus,
that's a good point.
Plus, keep in mind too. I mean, the reason why Lambert got turned was because he was helping Frank out in the not too distant past over their dealings with the with the drug lord or crime lord, I should say.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
there's already a relationship there between the two of them
very
anyway.
true. Yeah, very true. So that's true, right? So yeah, I think initially that makes a ton of sense. I think where that maybe gets into a little bit of muddy water, right? So we got Frank is kind of chasing after Joey now, so wants to kill Joey, just because at this stage. And so what ends up happening is Joey and Abigail have to kind of team up to take care of Frank. So to like your point, I think this is where, to me at least, it got weird. Was like, so Frank was able to, kill Lambert, which I totally agree with you. Thinking back to it, yes, I totally agree with you. But he's also able to overpower Abigail, who might be in a smaller body, but clearly has many, many years, a century more experience than him. So, do you think it's like her physical body that's maybe the challenge, or
Yeah, I mean, at the
we
end of the day,
able
at the end of the
Mhm.
day, I just taught it down to the fact that Frank is bigger and stronger. Because
Okay.
because think about it, like, even if you're going up against someone who's centuries years old, yeah, they've got all the experience and probably the strength, but they're still limited by the size of their body. So like say for instance, if you were to go up against like a 5-year-old who is an immortal, I mean, yeah, they're gonna have seen and done far more things than you have, but you'll still have the advantage over them because you're bigger and you're stronger than that person, right?
I mean, but
Um,
would you say vampires don't have good strength? Like, I get the physicality, like I get the bigger body, but it's like, I mean, we see like these characters like toss people around. Like we saw Abigail kind of, she like starts to fly and she's pulling up Frank by his jeans. So I don't know. For me personally, it just seemed like odd to me because like I didn't really look at her like physically being small would relate to how much power she had. That's just for me
but I
personally.
mean, like if she was far more powerful than Frank, I mean, she could have just split him in half right then and there. She wouldn't have to go through the whole thing of telling Joey, hey, if you help me out, I'll let you go.
Well, no, of course, like the movie helps paint the picture for it. I just, from my perspective, it didn't feel very consistent, right? So if you could show Abigail being strong for her stature, and then you see Frank coming in, I don't think him being physically bigger than her means he has more strength or more power over her. I would think that like her experience and like her knowledge of how to be a vampire would be better. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into it because like it's a vampire thing and you can just chalk it up to whatever. I just felt like personally it was a little bit of inconsistency with how they were showing the characters. But yeah, to your point, right? So we got the team up, right? We got Frank. I'm sorry, we have Joey and we have Abigail teaming up to kill Frank. They're able to kill him, and we kind of have this like nice kind of moment at the end where I think for Abigail, she kind of appreciates what Joey's done and being kind of help save her life, so to speak. And then this is where Lazar shows up at the very end, and we see he wants to kill Joey, and we see Abigail kind of goes to bat for her, right? So she kind of supports Joe and be like, no, she was here for me. And there's been kind of a lot of subtext about, Abigail not feeling very close with her dad and everything. So it kind of like makes sense within the story why this is happening. But she eventually is able to, convince Lazar that, you got to let her go. And we get to see our final character, Joey. She gets to drive out of there, presumably going to, rectify her relationship with her son. And that's how it ends. So I guess, Luca, anything you want to do to wrap this up here?
I mean, I will say this. I think Joey does a phenomenal job with being a surrogate parent to Abigail, because you kind
Absolutely.
of see that parallel. I mean, Joey fails as a parent to her own child, so she tries to make it up for it by being very protective of Abigail. And Abigail even hints at it that that her dad really doesn't care about her. That's the reason why. I mean, that's part of the reason why she turned this mansion into a hunting grounds, try to get her dad's attention. Um, so so in a way, you kind of, even though Abigail's a vampire, you kind of feel for her because she
Yes.
may be centuries years old, but she still has that need, that want for parental approval. Um, Even if she's got to do horrible, despicable things to get to it. So she kind of recognizes Joey's desire to try to make it up with her kid too, because she can understand how it feels to be on the receiving end of the whole
Yes.
mess. So I thought that was a pretty good
Excellent
touch.
point. Yes. Yeah, excellent point. There definitely is, outside of just the, kind of the comedy, the extreme gore that happens from time to time, there definitely is kind of this, kind of like nice underlying story of kind of that reconciliation that we see with a lot of the characters. And, I think Lazar even has kind of that. I think he kind of realizes, seeing the way that she acts, like, I've been kind of a douche. So, kind of has that change of approach. So, but yeah, I think just kind of my final thoughts on this. I really did enjoy this. I initially went into it, had no idea what to expect. I really enjoyed it. Watched it a second time just the day before today that we're doing the recording, and it was a blast for me. Seeing it a second time, you pick up on some of the nuance that you're not expecting once you kind of know the twist, so to speak. So being able to see that, I think just kind of really maybe enjoy it that much more. The characters just so diverse, like so interesting. Minus Dean, who, like I said, I'm glad he was the first one gone. You just kind of get thrown a lot of surprises at you, and you really get to enjoy the characters. And it's one of those things that I feel like could blend kind of this, kind of nice underlying story with, this gore and some humorous points. Like, I did generally get some laughs out of stuff. And I think the acting was superb from all the characters. I think Abigail was great. I really like Frank. He plays that role excellent. Like, all these characters, while they don't have tons and tons of depth behind them, they do kind of play up their traits really well, and it really helps the character stick out in your mind. So I give them lots of props for that. I think if I had to give this a grade, I would probably give it 4.3 out of 5. No sparkling vampires. I think that they did just a really good job with this. I had a ton of fun with it, and I would definitely urge people to check it out. And I think review showings, I think, kind of add a different dynamic to it. So, yeah, that's my final thoughts. So, Luca.
I would give it a 4 out of 5. I mean, for what it is, it works. I mean, it takes you in a direction that you're not expecting, but it delivers. Really, it's not one of those things where they change midstream and they say, "Oh, well, guess what? Now we're horror," but then they kind of they kind of make you wonder what the hell's going on here. Because you thought it was a heist movie, but then it turns into horror, and then at the end it turns into a soppy family drama. It's nothing like that. It's one of those things where it kind of blends seamlessly. Really,
Yes.
the way
Yes.
I the way I would see it is this: it's kind of like if you were stacking like bricks or something. Like the heist movies at the bottom, then the supernatural horror element gets stacked on top, and then the family drama gets stacked on top also. And then a little bit of black comedy stacked on top of that. So it's not like one breaks off and the other kind of picks up from there. It's like they're just building on top of one another.
Yes.
That's the way I see it. I think out of all the characters, I think Dan Stevens kind of stands out the most, and the fact that he plays Frank. What I love about him is he plays Frank with such seriousness, but
Yes.
everything that happens to him is just so comedic. It's like there's no way in hell like someone can keep getting stabbed over and over again. Like it's just too ridiculous. And yet here he is, basically turning into a human pincushion. And even at the end where he thinks he's finally come out on top, like he ends up getting stabbed one more time, and he ends up getting, turned into jelly soup, as it were.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I like Kevin Durant that played Peter. I think I just
yeah,
really liked how he did kind of this kind of like totally oblivious, like he's just like a grunt, with like definitely has some conflicting conscience there. Like, I think he's got a good heart, but
But I mean, it works. It works for the
Yes,
character.
exactly. It does.
I will say this, like the Tchaikovsky tune that they play over and over again, that theme from Swan Lake, it's a callback. It's a callback to Bela Lugosi's Dracula from the 30s. So I really enjoyed that they're referencing, previous vampire movies by playing, the theme that was playing at the intro of, one of the first vampire movies to be filmed by Hollywood. So I thought that was a pretty good nod. So that's my final score right there, for Abigail. Were there any final thoughts or anything else you wanted to add before we sign off?
Yeah, I just want to once again, I know I said it there, I really liked Abigail. I think she did great in this role. So I'm very curious. It's always good to see like kind of new, actors, actresses coming up into the world. So I'm very curious to see what the future kind of holds for her. But I think she absolutely knocked this, out of the park, because she has to kind of balance that, kind of like childlike innocence at the beginning, into like the fact that she's like this over-the-top monster by the end. So I think she does a very good job of balancing that. So I definitely want to also give her some props. But that is it for me, Luca.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our review of Abigail. Let us know down in the comments below what you think. If you thought Abigail was a great movie, or do you think they could have done better? And as always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.